Hello everyone, this week we're going to be making a trifold brochure using InDesign for Australia. Let's get started. So in InDesign we're going to say File, New, Document. Go ahead and click on Default. Let's call this Letter Fold. Change this to inches. And this needs to be 4 inches by 9 inches. And uncheck Facing Pages. So Facing Pages is off, but make sure Primary Text Frame is on. The column and gutters is fine. Down in Margins, make sure they are linked together, and we're going to make all of our margins 0.25. So they're all 0.25. For our bleed, make sure those are locked together, and we're going to make all of them 0.125. Now go down to slug and make sure those are unlinked. So the top and the bottom need to be 0.5 inches. And we're going to leave the left and the right the way they are. Go ahead and hit Create. And it's going to look something like this. So the red lines is where our bleed is going to go to. Right here, the black is the edge of the paper, and then this up here is the slug. Let's go ahead and save this in our Work in Progress folder. So say File, Save As. And go find wherever your work in progress is. And I'm going to call this Robert's Letterfold. Now let's make sure we're all in Window, Workspace, Essentials, Classic. And we're going to do like we have before. We need to add some things. So go to Window, Type, and Add Character. And I'm going to dock it right there. Window, Type, Paragraph. And I'm going to dock it right there. Okay, so let's open up Pages, which should be right here at the top. And you'll see we have just the one page on the screen. And then here is the different parents. So we're going to have various parents. So click on this first parent, which is A, and right click and say Parent Options for A parent. So let's call this first one Outside with Marks. And we need to tell it that it's going to have 3 pages. So go ahead and hit OK. So we've got a couple things here. Right now we are looking at just this one page, but this is almost like a template up here. So if we double click on the actual word A, Outside with Marks, it's going to give us that little template. You see, we're looking at all 3 together. So we're going to work on this for a while, and then when we make the pages, we can tell it which of these templates we want it to use. So here on this Outside with Marks, we're going to click right here on this inside area, this little text area that it has for us. So if you remember when we made this, we said to have the one text box. So because at the time we only had one of these master pages instead of like 3. So we just need to copy this over to the other 2 because there's only one little text box made. So if you click Alt and drag, just like with anything, or Command, Alt or Option, click and drag, it's going to make 2. So you see there's one there and one there. Same thing, Alt and drag. And you see when I click Alt, you see how it's got that little double cursor. That's showing us that it's in copy mode. So now there's 3 of these that we can put stuff in. So if you want to click on the entire little page, you're going to get this page tool, which is right here underneath your selection tool. And you see how that one's got that little white border around it, so it's actually selecting the middle one. And you can see up here, see how it's on the middle one? Or you can click on this one, and now we're on that one. So we want to click on this first one, and you can see it's actually on that first one. And up here, the contextual toolbar has changed. So while we have this first one selected, the contextual toolbar is going to change. We need to make sure that it's on object based, which it should default to. And we're going to click Objects Move with Page. So whatever we put in there, if we moved this page to a different area, it would go with us. And also notice up here in this contextual bar that we have these little target points that we've used in Illustrator before. So we're going to click this middle reference point so that anything we do is going to be referenced to that area of the page. So now that we have that reference point chosen, we should go over to where it says width and go after the little where it says IN for 4 inches and just type in minus 0.125 and hit enter. Do you see that it has made the width of this just a little bit smaller? Now, a lot of times when you're making a brochure, the printer will give you this template they've already made. And a lot of times this very first one will be just a slight, you see 0.125 inches smaller, because when you fold the brochure up, the folds of the paper kind of add some thickness to it, so that first one needs to be just a tad smaller. And because we clicked that reference point, it left it attached to the other two. So we're just fixing up our template first before we start designing. And you know how you have this right because it should say 3.875 inches because it did the math for us. So now go in and get your type tool. And we're going to draw a little type box right here above this top one in this slug. So this actually won't print. We're just making our template. So up here, we're going to type outside left panel, fold in. And let's go ahead and click center right here. So we're just kind of making our template. Like we could use this template over and over again if we're making other brochures, and we would know that's the outside left panel. So that's what's good about the slug, is it's things that are not going to print, but it's just telling us what it is. Now to make sure that this doesn't print, we're going to grab our selection tool and make sure you've selected that text box. So go to Window, Output, Attributes, and this should pop up, and we're going to tell it this is non-printing. And you actually saw it do this non-printing area when we did the candy packaging, and all those little lines and things that were on our template did not actually print when we made our PDF. It's because they were non-printing areas. All right, so we need to label these other two. So with your selection tool, grab this entire text box and Alt drag over so that we make a copy. And we're going to do it again. So we have 2 copies. And because we made this one non-printing, it made both of these non-printing. Let's change this one to say outside center panel. Mail, and then right here, instead of fold in, it's going to say mailing area. And this one's going to say outside right panel, front. And now if you kind of look at that and think about it, the outside of a brochure, like they'd often put the information about the brochure here on, that's where it says mailing area. That's going to be folded in because it's going to be on the inside because this is the front. And let's go ahead and save, Control S. And let's get our line tool. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Alt scroll my mouse, and I need to just draw a line, just line up with this and draw a line straight up so that we have a little line right there. And I need my properties panel. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put our properties panel on here when we were setting up at the very beginning. It's okay, let's do it now. Window, properties. Yeah, it needs to be right there. So now that I've got that, I can make sure my stroke is black. And we want it to be 0.5. Now with that stroke still selected, go over to your stroke menu, and we're going to choose dashed at the very bottom so that it's a little dashed line. And right here it's asking us what we want our dash, how big we want our dash to be. We're going to say 3 points. And so you see it's made us a cute little dashed line there. So now I want you to grab that line, Alt and drag to make a copy of it, and place it right on top of that line. And we might need to move it over and make sure it's aligned perfectly. There we go. And you know it's aligned properly if it says 7.875 and minus 0.25. But mine's, yeah, that one's good. Now we have that line selected. Shift and select the other line. So now they're both selected. Control C for copy. Control V for paste. And then we can put those two lines down here at the bottom. And zoom in and make sure they're lined up correctly. All right, that looks good. So we're having these marks that we can see where the design is going to end. Let's go ahead and hit save, Control S. Okay, get your type tool, and down here in the slug, and make sure it's not in the bleed area because that'll show up. We need to make another text box. And in here, instead of typing something, we're going to go up to type, type, text variable, insert variable, file name. And what it's going to do is, since we're creating a template right now, so if you use this template again, whatever the template is called, it's going to grab that file name. So you see mine's called Robert's Letterfold, and it's going to put it down there. So now after the word letterfold, hit a space, and then put a slash and say modified. And put a colon. So after the colon, just hit a space, and then we're going to go up to type, text variables, insert variable, modification date. And what's good about this is anytime you open up this file and change it, it's going to put that date on there for us. Now while we're still in that, we're going to say type, text variables, define, and we're going to say new. So what these text variables do is we could tell it we want, say, see it says chapter number or page number or file name or any of these things. So we could tell it always put whatever page number we're on. If we're on a 1,000-page book, it would just change it for us every time. So that's what a variable is. We're making a brand new one. We're going to call this one project status. And here under type, we're going to say custom text, and then we're going to tell it the custom text, which is project status. Then hit the space bar once, and we're going to add a special character. So you click this little arrow right here, and we're going to add an ellipses. And it doesn't look like an ellipses, but if you look at it down here in the preview, it is an ellipses. And we're going to do another space, and type work in progress. And hit OK. Okay, go ahead and hit done. And let's get our type tool and make another type box down here. And go to type, text variables, insert variable, and you see there is a new one called project status that we just made. So it's going to put that project status in there. Okay, grab your text tool and let's make sure both of these are saying they're not printable. You may have that attributes window back open. I'd closed mine. So that if you've closed yours, it was in window output attributes, and we need to make sure that's non-printing, and the same thing with this one. Okay, so go ahead and say Control A, which should select everything, but we need to remember that we're making a template. Like if we look up here in Pages, we're making the template that we're going to use on everything. So we want to be able to change the things on the different pages of our brochure that are inside here, but we don't want these things up here to change. So we need to tell it, that. So we're going to unselect all of these things up here. So they're all selected, but now click Shift and unselect those text boxes. Do you see that the blue is turning off? That means we are unselecting all 5 of these little things. So the only thing that should be selected is the main text boxes and things we made. Now just put your mouse kind of in the middle and right click. And you see here it says allow parent item overrides. We want to uncheck that. So if I right click and go back, you can see it is unchecked. So make sure that's unchecked. You just right click and it'll come up. Okay, we haven't saved in a while, so everybody Control S. And you can click anywhere to deselect that. And let's go back over to Pages and make sure all of this, your outside marks that we've been working on is selected. And you can right click and say Duplicate Parent Spread. So now we have 2 different parents, an A and a B. So let's right click on the parent and say Parent Options. And we do want this to be our B selection. But for the name, we're going to call it Inside with Marks. And if you think about a brochure, this makes sense. The stuff we did that was going to go like on the outside of the brochure, but it's 2 sides, so this is the inside. And these need to be designed separately. A brochure is going to have different things on the outside than it is on the inside, so we need kind of 2 templates. So the only problem we have here is if you think about it logically, if these were opposite of each other on one piece of paper, the actual, the outside would actually be in a different order. So we need this page right here that I'm pointing to actually be over here. So what you're going to do is get your Pages button, get your Pages tool, and make sure you have this one selected that's called Outside Left Panel Fold In. And we're going to hit the Control button and drag it. We're going to start dragging it, hit Control, and move it to over here. When you let go, do you see that they're actually changed? So the mailing area used to be in the middle, but now it's over to the left. And then the front is in the middle, and then the left panel is fold in. And that's what we were doing. So basically I just picked up the one that was on the left and moved it to the right. Now let's change these to make sense. Get your type tool. And this is no longer the outside center panel at all. It is now the inside left panel. Spelled that wrong. Inside left panel. This one's the inside center panel. And this is the inside right panel, fold in. Now one thing that happened is I did lose my little dashed line that I made. Might be able to see it. Where did it go? Oh, it's way over here. If you can't find it, you can just copy it from the other side, but I just need to move this little line back over. Make sure it's in the right place. Probably happened down here too. Oh, there, this one's over here for some reason. Put that one over here. And then the last thing we need to do is move these into the right places. And let's save again. So up here in Pages, I want you to grab this, all three of these that say outside with marks, and just drag them down to become actual pages. So basically we've made 3 pages out of those master pages. And we're going to take the ones that are on B, make sure you have all 3 selected, and drag those down. And we no longer need this first one that was just kind of a dummy page, so click on that very first one and just hit the delete trash can. Yes, I want to delete it. So now we have a brochure based on our master pages up here and the template we made, and we have the same thing down here for the inside. And if you want to look at, say, the first page of A, you can just double click and you see it kind of brings it to that one. Double click on B, it brings us to that side. So go ahead and make sure all of these in A are selected. You can hit Shift to grab all 3 of the A, and right click and say override all parent page items. Let's do the same thing for B. Override all parent page items. Now another thing that'll make this easier is to go up into your preferences, which is an edit, preferences, type, and turn off this smart text reflow and hit OK. So now we've created this template, let's save it. So say File, Save As, and it's going to be in your work in progress. We want to call it letterfold, but instead of an InDesign document, we want to have an InDesign template. Notice it's INDT. And hit save. So we've saved this as a template. So at this point you have your template made, and you can save that and it will be ready for you to use in the next part of the lesson.